Okay. Well, thank you for being here, you guys. Like I said, I'm Jennifer Ashby. I'm from District 5080. I'm the Short-Term Youth Exchange Vice Chair, if that's a long enough title. And our question today is, what has been the power of short-term youth exchange? So first off, I'd like to start off with having you guys introduce yourselves. And this is Martin's idea. We each introduce ourselves and then we say one word that represents who we are today. Our name represents who we are all the time, but who are we today? And so I'm Jennifer Ashby and I'm curious today. How about you, Holly?
Well, I'm Holly Johnson and I'm just interested in, learning more about this aspect of Rotary.
Okay. How about you, Alinio?
Hi, Alinio Acevedo. I'm with the Aspen Rotary Club in Colorado, District 5470. I just took over maybe a couple months ago as a coordinator for the short-term program in the district. So I'm really looking forward to learning more about it.
Okay. I'm supposed to record this. Do you guys mind if I record?
Please do.
I forgot to turn that on to start with. Oh, apparently our tech guy already did, so that's good. Okay, well, the idea behind these things, and you'll see this in other sessions, is we let each person, we kind of ask a question, let each person talk for a minute, and we have a recorder and a timer. There's only 3 of us, so I'm thinking that's, if one of you wanted to kind of take notes on what we're talking about, that would be helpful, and you could just stick it in chat or just write it on paper. But I think we'll be a little less formal, if that's okay. It sounds like both of you are new to short term.
Yeah, I am. I haven't done any of the short term. I've had a daughter in the long term Rotary, so I know a lot about that one, but our club has never really done the short term.
Okay.
I'm in Sedona.
Oh, nice. Beautiful. Yeah. And you're kind of
Yeah.
in the same, Alinio?
Yeah, so our district has had a short term for a while, but it was dormant for many years, and we're just picking it up again.
Okay, so I think what I would like to hear is what you think will be the power of short-term exchanges. I've dealt with short-term exchange for a few years, so before I kind of tell you my thoughts, I'd like to hear some of what you guys think, because this is supposed to be a conversation, not a presentation. So what do you think will be the really powerful, beneficial parts of short-term exchange? You want to start, Alinio?
Yeah, I'll jump in, Jennifer. I think it would be giving the participants the opportunity to experience the world that otherwise they wouldn't have, or not in the same angle, right? Because it's very different for you to go somewhere on vacation as a tourist versus if you were to go and spend some time with a local family, understand the local culture, and experience it. So offering those young people the opportunity to do that on a short-term basis, not necessarily as an and, but maybe as a means for them to foster their curiosity about the world. So maybe they can, sign up for the long-term program down the road, or they can, once they're in college, spend some time abroad, but really kind of create the sparkle to those young individuals about exploring the world and exploring it more from a local culture perspective as simply as a tourist.
Good. That sounds interesting. What do you think, Holly?
Well, what I have found that we are having a lot of trouble recruiting long-term students, and I think this would be maybe a gateway to have their interest in the long-term. Our state changed that you couldn't do a post-high school exchange, and that's when we were getting all of ours to go, and now we can't recruit anybody for the long-term. So I just think if you can pique their interest with the short term, maybe then they would progress to that one. So I'd be interested in really getting this program going.
Okay, cool. That's what our district has been until the last few years. Short term was kind of this thing that was off to the side as a kind of an afterthought. We weren't thinking of it as a core piece of the whole program. And I took it over 4 years ago, I guess. And we've been trying to really, focus on it as a step, an intro maybe into long-term, but also as its own, it has value in and of itself, right? There are a lot of kids who don't have the money to be able to go, don't have the courage yet And maybe, if they're afraid to leave for a year, then this is an idea for, I can go see how this would be. A lot of kids just won't consider exchange because they don't want to miss a year with their classmates. And this is an opportunity to do an exchange without that factor. So yeah, it's an interesting. It's trying in my district to kind of get it up more towards being equal with long term has been a challenge, but we're certainly making progress. So you guys haven't tried recruiting yet for short term, or have you? No?
So we're starting our recruiting season soon, Jennifer. So I put together a little flyer. I'm talking to, there is a committee within our district who's pushing the message out to the club presidents. So we'll see. I think we established our deadline as end of January for people to apply.
Okay, and you're thinking physical, right? Physically going?
Physically going?
Well, this sounds like an odd question, but there's a lot of countries that won't let Americans in because we haven't gotten the pandemic under control. So some districts are looking at virtual exchanges in the meantime, right?
Oh no, we're looking for next summer. Hopefully they will be able to physically go somewhere. Yeah.
Yes, I hope so too. What are you thinking, Holly? Have you? You're muted.
Yeah. I wouldn't think about currently either. Our local school won't even let us deal with Interact. They can't even participate in things out in the community. So the school's just barely open. So again, it would be, this is a learning process for next year, or recruiting for, a year from now.
Okay.
I assume the programs are usually summer?
Yeah, usually, but that gets a little because we, when I started, we were only doing it with Europe. And so I started trying to do some with South America, but that gets complicated because their summer is different than our summer. So what I've had a couple of split exchanges where our kid went in the summer and then their kid came at Christmas. And then we've had some where the kids were older because the Rotary International rules for short term is 15 to 19, which means you can have kids who've graduated.
Okay.
So if they're not tied to the school year, then it's easier for them to come up. But yeah, I mean, there's a problem, at least in our district, but I think in the United States, there's probably been a problem lately of everybody wanting to go to Europe. And that's great, but it's not, we're trying to bring the world together. And we're not all just going someplace that we think will be fun and exciting. We want to go learn about, Asia and South America. And we haven't, I don't know about most districts, we haven't been doing Africa for safety reasons, but, so we really are trying to make sure that we're representing a lot more of the world. So I keep trying to get kids to do those others, but it is more complicated. The European ones are, really well established. Spain and Italy send out, 180 kids, between 150 and 180 a year. So you can get great matches with them because they've got so many to choose from. The most we've ever sent out is 8 kids from our district. So if somebody sends me a request, I don't have a big crop to pick from to match interests and ages and things. So, but yeah, so you can do, any district in the world that is certified for short term, you can exchange with. But if like if they're on a different calendar year and stuff, it can be more complicated. But usually people are really willing to, come up with various solutions. So I'm curious how you guys do with, do you do all the flight arrangements and stuff for the kids? Or is that the plan that you would do that? Or do you let the families, once you've matched them up, do you let the families cooperate to do that? Or how do you plan to manage that?
We'd probably do it the easiest thing, where probably let the family do it, but As again, having absolutely no experience, I'm coming from ground zero.
Okay. Do you know what you've done, Alina?
No, same here. I don't know what we've done. We haven't done one in years. But my
Okay.
sense is we would just let the person deal directly with the travel arrangements, and again, let the families connect. Question,
Yeah.
previous comment, Jennifer. Have you ever done anything with Japan? And does Japan work for the U.S. school calendar?
Well, we tried to do something with Japan once and it didn't work out, I think. And I don't think that was our fault. I think the kid just had another situation and dropped out of the thing. So I think they're on the same school year calendar. But I haven't done all the logistics, but I think, you know, that it's worth a try. One thing I was going to tell you about the arrangements, we used to do it so we made all the flight arrangements and we had a flat fee for all the kids, right? So it would cost $2,500 to do an exchange, and then I pulled that out of the air. I don't know what it was. The problem with that was some places you can fly to for, you know, $700 and some for 3,000. And so people were upset that if their flight was cheaper, why are they having to pay all this and stuff? So what we do now is we just charge $500, and that covers the orientation camp supplies, like we give them a hoodie and pins to trade and banners and that kind of stuff, and insurance. And then we let them work with the families to do their travel arrangements and stuff. So it's a lot easier for us. And I haven't had any families complain about that. I think they've been very, they'd rather make their own arrangements. It just makes more sense. Usually you can work around various things with the families a lot more easier without an intermediary trying to figure it out. So, but we ask that they, as soon as they get tickets and stuff, they give us the information so we can buy their insurance and so we can kind of keep track of them as they go. We make sure they have an outbound counselor, so someone to keep track of them when they're out and about, in other countries. And then when they come here, we have often it's the same person who's the counselor for the incoming student in case there's problems. And it's usually 3 weeks to somewhere between 3 weeks and 30 days, and you wouldn't think there'd be that many problems, but they can come up with problems, I promise you. Had a kid come home, she went to Ecuador and was down there and had a good exchange, came back, and she'd been this very incredibly well-behaved kid. Always, so, she came back with her friend from Ecuador and said, we were able to go wherever we wanted to, whenever we wanted to during that exchange. So now that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna take my incoming student and we're gonna go to Portland by ourselves. And this mom didn't know what to do. So we had to go in and, hi, Marilyn. The mom just panicked. She'd never dealt with her kid really rebelling before. So we kind of, I sent the youth exchange officer there to sit him down and give him the rules of the exchange. It's like, I'm not telling you your mom's rules. I'm telling you that if you head off for Portland, this kid's going home right now. And so, they came along, but it's like kids don't need a full year to start having issues. So Marilyn, we've just been talking a little bit. The subject of this is what has been the power of short-term exchanges. I guess first, what club are you from, and have you done short-term?
Yes, I'm from Renton Rotary in District 5030, so Seattle area, and I'm actually on the District Youth Exchange Committee as well as my club youth exchange officer, and I have been deeply involved in doing the matches for the summer exchange program in our district for probably about 20 years.
Oh, good, because we've got 2 newbies here, and I've been trying to get out of them what they're, I haven't had to work at it, they're being very forthcoming, but what they think it will be like, and then I've kind of shared some of my stuff. I'm the short-term
Yes.
vice chair for District 5080, but I'd love to hear some of your stuff. I've only been doing it for like 4 years. The most kids we've ever had was 8. So maybe give us a kind of a rundown of your experience with it.
Well, we started, going back, my dad was a Rotarian, and so we had full year exchange students staying with us in the home. When I was in high school, I wanted to go on an exchange, but back in those days, if you were a child of a Rotarian, you couldn't apply. And so I had to go on another program, and I had a
That's-
horrible experience. And
Oh.
so what got me driven into getting into this was knowing that the Rotary program is better because we interview the students, we interview the families, you have the, you know, the monitoring and whatnot. And so that's kind of what got me going into it. But our district has done anywhere from, oh gosh, we were up in the low 30s with numbers for the students, just for our district does both full year and short term. But just for the short term exchanges, you know, we've done as many as 35 to 40 in a year, and we've been as low the last couple of years. We've been maybe 3 to 5, something like that. So it's definitely been dwindling. So we're trying to figure out how to get the system turned around. But I've worked with. Go ahead.
I just had the same situation. I'd get like between 8 and 15 applications, and we've sent out 8 a few times. And the last year I had 2 applications.
Yeah,
So,
and I
yeah.
think it's just kind of a sign of the times the last few years that there's, for whatever reasons, there's been kind of a decline.
Yeah, I'm going to welcome Vicki here and let her introduce herself a bit, and then we'll, I want to hear more from you, from all of you, actually. Vicki, you want to introduce yourself? You're muted.
Let me unmute for starters.
Yeah, there you go. Now we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm a past district governor from 5280. I was in charge of our Rotary Youth Exchange short term for 8 years. I'm also a psychologist and been involved chaperoning on 8 separate occasions, taking kids because it was short term to Japan, to Hiroshima, to the Peace Memorial, because I'm very, very active in the peace programs. And yeah, I'm happy.
You actually accompanied the kids to a
Yes.
group of the kids for the short term, and this wasn't like tour camps and tours, was it? Or
Excuse me?
well, there's camps and tours as part of short term, which we haven't talked about yet. But are you talking the family to family, or?
I'm talking the family to family,
Okay.
to family. And what my task was for a week prior to dropping them off in the district where they would go with the family, I toured around Japan with them to show them the highlights so that it wouldn't be, and the families paid for that, so that it wouldn't be on the host families in Japan to feel obligated to have to take the kids to show them. And one of the main venues that I chose, because I think it's really important to reinforce peace in every opportunity we can, and to continue to establish those bridges of friendship, that I took them to the Peace Memorial at Hiroshima.
Very nice.
And all around.
That's brilliant. I've never heard of that. Have you ever heard of that? Anything like that, Marilyn?
No.
I'd like to do that.
Yeah, well, it started in your district.
Yeah, well, I haven't heard the idea before.
Right now with COVID-19 to do any travels.
Exactly. Are either of you guys, the ones who have actually done short term, are you considering virtual exchanges for this year?
I would like to, but I'm not getting a whole lot of support from other people in my district yet. But I'm hoping that maybe today they'll get the buzzword in their ear a little bit and be a little bit more excited about it. Because I think we have to find ways to keep the program afloat by today's standards, or otherwise we're going to be behind the times. And I don't think it's a good idea not to do that. Right.
So one of the things I haven't researched this a lot, but I know Houston's doing it pretty actively, and it's basically online meetings between the kids and sometimes groups of kids that in different districts, and they have specific activities laid out for them to do so that they're required to interact around particular subjects and things and get to know each other. My feeling about it is just because I think it's so important to get your body in another country and experience things, but I would love to set up a virtual thing where, and this is up to the families anyway, but where it's an expectation that when things normalize, you'll at least make an attempt at doing an actual,
right, to get together to visit later on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's, we all know we can do so many wonderful things technologically, but it's not like sitting around a dinner table sharing, you know.
Right, and when you really physically can't communicate with the people, and yeah, your time lag is different, and you walk down the street, and yeah,
Yeah.
there is no replacement for the physical experience. But in the meantime, because my school district that in Renton that we serve, we have a lot of kids that come from. There are in our schools I think there's 92 different languages spoken.
Wow.
And so we have a lot of diversity, and there's a lot of we get a lot of interest for the summer program because the cost is less expensive. And I just feel like for some of those kids that have grown up in situations where their mom and dad like right now are having trouble coming up with computer equipment or internet access so that they can be involved in school every day and whatnot, I just feel like opening up some kinds of experiences like that to those kids is important.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. So were you, Vicki, are you still doing short term, or you've done it in the past?
No, I've done it in the past. I'm not doing it now. I'm steeped in the Rotary Action Group for Peace, Mediators Beyond Borders International, putting together International Peace Conference in Istanbul, just did one in Hong Kong. I mean, this virtual world has just expanded our horizon.
Yeah,
it has so much.
I mean, it was more sleep deprived because I'm getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to be on a call at 6 a.m. in Hong Kong. But it's okay because we're making friends. We're doing those bridges of friendship.
Absolutely. You're doing the work. Have you seen a big decline in short term or long term in your district in the last few years?
Yes, we have. And I'm from Los Angeles, from LA. And I think, to be honest with you, part of it is, I would say we have even a greater difficulty getting families to host here.
Yes.
And the difficulty is that everyone is just so, it's horrible. I mean, it's a lame excuse, but it's reality. Everyone is so busy with their own lives, making it happen. Maybe post COVID-19, God help us through it, that actually maybe we'll have a kinder, gentler approach to everything and not be as harried, busy, and open up our homes more.
Yeah.
Because that's honestly one of the greatest difficulties in getting the exchange part. The short term was much easier. I had no problem.
Well, because it's family to family.
Right, it's built in, and that's
but our
thing.
long term is family to family also. It's just that it's divided between 2 or 3 families.
Right, but you're not, when you send a child out short term, their family is committed to hosting. At least in our district, we don't do that. A family's not required to host just because they send their kid out. So that means we have to find 1 to 3 families to
and we're that way too, because when we do the full year exchanges, most of the kids that we send out, the families, there's 16 people living in one little tiny apartment, so you can't even consider putting a student in that home.
Right, exactly.
So that's why the summer program, I think, for us works the best, because if a kid wants to go to France, they have to host that visitor. So you eliminate that.
From? Maryland?
Seattle. 5030.
Okay.
So Holly or Arlenio, do you have questions on some of the stuff these guys have been talking about, or comments?
Well, I think for me, I just need to do the research and read up about exactly the structure of the program. There's another woman that's president of our club that knows everything. So, but she's putting me into these committees. So I think I just need to really learn about it, because I'm just only familiar with the year program because my daughter went for the year and we've had 2 students for the year. So I do know personally about the year, but the short term, I just have never done the research. So
yeah.
Well, Hal.
Hi, Hal.
Are you bombing us? This is my boss down here in the corner.
Oh, hi.
I'm bombing you because the other session ended just now, which is kind of surprising.
Oh, that's interesting.
Ours just started. I just got in about 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, but I found out I wasn't the only one. I thought, oh my gosh, I use Zoom all the time. And I thought it said when I tried to get in, it said, please wait for the host to start the session. I'm like, well, this is a problem. So Hal, where are you from Renton then too?
I'm co-joined with Maryland. We're in 50-30, which is in the Seattle area. We're in King County, Washington, so Seattle and its suburbs.
But he's not
Great.
from Renton. He's from what club are you?
Oh, I'm sorry.
University?
I'm from University Sunrise.
Okay, good. So, but your district then, you have so many resources. We've got great resources, but we are Eastern Washington, Northern Idaho, Southern British Columbia. And so for us to all get together and stuff is a really big deal. Of course, now we can all do it all by Zoom. But, so Hal, what do you think's has been the power of short-term exchanges?
Well, has Marilyn already answered this question?
I didn't actually pose the question to people everyone as they came in, but.
Well, I'll tell. So Marilyn has answered or has not answered? I didn't hear.
Not specifically that question.
Not specifically. Well, I'm going to defer to Marilyn, to be honest with you, because she's got more experience with the short-term exchange than I do. Although I will say that our district is moving to the short-term exchange. That's going to be our major point of emphasis going forward. But Marilyn knows a lot more than I do. So Marilyn, would you mind?
Yeah. Well, I think we were just talking before Hal popped in to join us. I think the biggest power with it is that you've got the host families built into it. If you follow the traditional model, which is that a student goes out and their family agrees to host the visitor. So I think for us, that's probably the greatest power. I think, as I mentioned as well, it's accessible to families that don't have as much income as the full year program is a little bit, and I think it's also good for kids that are interested in trying something, but they're not quite ready to do a full year exchange. It just gives them that opportunity. And so that's the thing that I've always felt with the summer program, is that it's pretty flexible, and it appeals to a lot of different people in the population. The only challenge that I see with it is, as I mentioned, coming from a school district where we've got 92 languages, is that a lot of times the families just can't participate in that program because they don't have the housing resources and whatnot to take another person in. And so then a lot of times we end up trying to divert those kids to the full year program, because then they can go out and their family is not required to host. So that's why I think that's probably the biggest reason why we're shifting towards the summer program as our major focus in our district, is just that host family thing.
Okay. But I didn't specifically ask you the question either, Vicki. What do you think is the power of short-term exchange?
The difficulty, the power is that the reciprocity in hosting is shorter. The term, short term. So because the greatest difficulty that we have in LA is getting, and the beach area and all around 5280, is getting the families comfortable and committed to bring a student into their home with their, as I said, over max schedules already. So the shorter period of time, the better it is. And what I've even found with the short term is we would bring them here for 6 weeks, and every 2 weeks they would go to a different club's family.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's
So
good.
2 weeks was easier for them to embrace than 9 months.
Yeah. So I have, we were talking a little bit earlier, before all you folks who've been doing this a little longer came in, about exchanges to various countries. My district started out, when I started doing it, everything was Europe. And so I tried to get some South America and some Asia, and I've done a couple to Brazil, which is more complicated because the school year is different. So we did one split exchange, where our kid went down in the summer and their kid came up at Christmas, our Christmas, or we all have the same Christmas, but down for our summer and then up at Christmas. And then we had another where the person from Brazil had graduated, so she wasn't tied to the school year. But I'm wondering, what, you know, if you guys are doing all different continents or mainly focused on Europe or what?
We mostly do Europe. We've done a couple, I think, with Mexico, and in the past, but not recently. One of the challenges that we have is that one of the people that's been running our summer program for, I don't know, probably what, 20 years, Hal, is a little bit stubborn. He was a little bit stubborn. He's stepped off of our committee, and so we're kind of trying to open up a few doors again. But I would say that most of our summer exchanges, and we also go, our choices are kind of driven by where the students want to go. And in our schools, we have a lot of Spanish and French and Japanese and German are kind of the four languages. And so most of the exchanges that we do are Europe. I have it in the past, we worked with Turkey, but with all of the political stuff that's going on recently, we haven't done that for a few years, but we've done Turkey and Japan. I don't know that we've done any short-term exchanges with any of the South American countries, but if we can find ways to do it, you know, we're open to ideas. The one thing that we have always kind of avoided is doing the split exchanges. And I think that's something that I feel pretty strongly about that should not be done, because you lose that the bonding and the reciprocity. And we've experienced with most of the exchanges that we've done on a split system, there's oftentimes been, you know, challenges with the relationship between the students and the family. And so we try to avoid that whenever possible.
It's certainly not ideal. We had to do it, or that exchange wasn't going to go. So we, you know, and ours worked out, but I would try to avoid it. Alinea was specifically interested in Japan and how, if there were any specific things you need to take into consideration for Japan.
That's where I've done the bulk of the short term. Did you want me to answer that, or
absolutely, yeah,
someone else? Yeah. In all the years that we were doing the exchange with Japan that I was involved, there was only one incident that we experienced that hadn't before, and it's the same issue that I said was difficulty in LA. And that was the last time that I was involved. We sent a troop of kids, took them over, dropped them off. And one of the families that had agreed to host, I guess they had elderly, because often there are extended families that live together in Japan. That's part of their custom and tradition. However, I guess that there was a problem with one of the elderly grandparents. As a result, the family that owned a hotel ended up putting our student up in a hotel, which meant
no.
And I was going, oh my God, no, you know.
Well,
wow.
That might be better than the year that we sent a student to Italy, and the host parents were gone. And so we had two students that were living in a home with an older male cousin. So a cousin of the opposite sex from another town was driving down once a week to check in on them, and they were living in the home alone.
Well then your story tops mine.
But the hotel is still very bad.
Yeah, well, yeah, and as a psychologist too, you know, I mean, it's so important that we have this exchange and appreciation for the family unit. And this poor kid that was just hanging in his hotel, I mean, there were parts of it that he loved. He called for room service, you know, several times a day, and he didn't have to pay a cent for it. He could order whatever he wanted off the menu, but his parents were quite upset.
Oh,
so
no joke.
I immediately heard about it and had to intervene. And then after that, and it wasn't because of that, because it was due to other commitments that I had that I could no longer participate. But also a couple years later, Japan stopped participating in the program as well. And they said that it became, because the cost of living was so difficult over there, it became more and more difficult for them to find families that could host and open their homes. And you know, reciprocate the way we expected them to, because we would take their kids anywhere and everywhere that we could for wonderful experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would second that Japan has been difficult recently because there's only just a couple districts that are participating and they don't have very much interest. And I know that we've had to turn students for Japanese matches away several times in the last 5 or 6 years,
Okay.
just because we can't find matches.
Yeah, and it's so sad because the ones that have gone just raved about the wonderful experience they had. I had a connection to take them to a world-renowned art museum in Kyoto that was built on this hill by I.M. Payne, world-renowned architect. It was such an enriching experience for them, even before they got to the homestay aspect, and then that include. In fact, I just this morning on Facebook, got a response from someone whose son had gone 15 years ago, and how that's the only experience he had was that short-term exchange. He has since learned Japanese and is an anime guru, and has learned everything, and is doing anime graphic design. So
Cool.
So I would say,
we are getting into our last 10 minutes, but we have a new person in. Marla, where are you from, and what do you do short-term exchange? You're muted right now. Still mute. There we go.
So I'm actually the facilitator for the next session. So it's time for you guys to end and move on to your next session.
I thought we went to 10:25. I'm sorry.
No, actually the next session starts at 10:25. So you've got a few minutes if you want to take a couple minutes.
Could I ask you guys who are experienced with short-term exchange, if you'd be willing to let Alineo and Holly get a hold of you with questions? You're always welcome to get a hold of me if you'd like.
Yep.
I'm District 5080. These two, we've got Renton and Los Angeles, or Seattle area and Los Angeles. So